3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Live from the Play Show, yet not overly ostentatious studios of the Zach Gelb Show here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor of 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on into a Thursday edition of our fine radio program across all the great local Infinity Sports Network affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and of course, streaming live on YouTube. 855-212-4227 is the number to jump on in. That's 855-212-4227. You could always get at me on Instagram, where I'm straight flexing, or via the good old cesspool of Twitter X at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. We got a whole lot to do today. We continue our NFL preview. Pat Leonard, who is a longtime NFL reporter and Giants reporter for the New York Daily News, he is going to stop by 20 minutes from now as we preview Big Blue. At the top of the hour, Hall of Fame defensive back Champ Bailey will stop by. And then the 5 p.m. Eastern time hour, it's time to preview the Minnesota Vikings, and we'll do so with Alec Lewis, who does cover the Vikings for The Athletic at 5:20 p.m. Eastern, 2:20 p.m. Pacific. But we have to start with Colorado football, as tonight we get to see the second season kick off for the Colorado Buffaloes with Coach Prime as the head coach at Colorado. And they're going up against North Dakota State. I do think tonight is a really good test for Colorado to show us what they can potentially be this year. Because don't get me wrong, they beat North Dakota State. I don't believe it's going to elicit a strong reaction in terms of, oh, I drastically changed my opinion about the Buffaloes of Colorado. However, though, North Dakota State is no slouch. We know North Dakota State is a really good football program. Like, this isn't a week one game where it's cupcake you like a lot of these other programs do schedule. North Dakota State is a legitimate opponent. And I do anticipate Colorado to win the game, but I can't sit here and say it's with 110% certainty. So, if North Dakota State does pull off the week one upset, and we've seen crazier things happen, right? You look at the history of week one games, I think we all remember Appalachian State taking down Michigan. So we've seen like these crazy upsets in college football before, and you look at Colorado, North Dakota State, where it's a little bit different than the NFL, is yes, you have spring practices. Yes, you have, summer camp that gears you up for the season. With that being said, though, there's no preseason games. There's no joint practices that are played for any team in college football. So if you are sloppy, if you are a slow starting team in week one, there's a chance where the little guy can defeat the big guy. And in this role, Colorado's the big guy and North Dakota State's the little guy. But when you look at the little guy of North Dakota State, they're not an emaciated little guy. They got some guns on them. They are definitely a program that could pull off this upset. But you look at Colorado and the speed that they have with Travis Hunter, and then you look at who their quarterback is with Shedeur Sanders. The biggest question for Colorado this year, and we could see it on display because, you go back to last year in that 3-0 start. The thing I was blown away was with the skill position players. And going into that season, it was, what's the line going to be? What's the offensive line going to look like for Colorado? And through the first 3 games of the season, it wasn't like the offensive line was great, but they were just quicker and faster than the 3 teams that they played. When you go back and look at TCU, Nebraska, and quite frankly, that Colorado State game, even though Colorado was able to wipe a lot of sweat off their forehead and win that game, that kind of showed us in that third game that Colorado wasn't as good as what they put on the field in the first 2 games of the season. And this game, I know all we do is obsess on who's the coach, who's the quarterback, who's the wide receiver. Football's been played for a long time. And you don't need a PhD in football to figure this out. But the game is won in the trenches. Yes, you could have a great offensive line, and if you have a crappy quarterback, a crappy wide receiver, and a crappy running back, the great offensive line means nothing. But if your offensive line is not solid, is not average, is not good, I don't care who your quarterback is. Look at the great Patrick Mahomes. When did he lose a Super Bowl? When his offensive line stunk up against a great pass rush of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I know that their tackles got hurt before the Super Bowl. Look at Tom Brady. When has Tom Brady lost Super Bowls? When the New York Football Giants were able to pressure him all night long, not only once, but twice. And I know everyone says, oh, Brady threw for 505 yards up against the Eagles. Yeah, he did. That was the best individual statistical performance Tom Brady's ever had in a Super Bowl. But why did he lose? Because late in the game, Brandon Graham obliterated the Patriots' offensive line and strip sacked the great Tom Brady. I know that there are quarterbacks that say, yeah, I like getting hit, right? You got some psychos that go, I definitely get going when someone hits me from the other team. But mentally, all quarterbacks, when they get hit over and over and over and over again, it impacts them not only physically, but up here. And in this game tonight, I am going to be like Brian Baldinger, for crying out loud, with Baldy breakdowns. And I'm going to be watching pretty much only the offensive line. Like, yeah, I'll peek at Travis Hunter because he's awesome playing two ways. I'll take a glance at Shedeur Sanders, but I don't think my opinion on Shedeur that he'll be a first-round quarterback is going to change greatly tonight. But the biggest question I have with Colorado is they keep on saying we revamped our offensive line. We have improved our offensive line. Well, the offensive line last year was garbage. The offensive line last year was terrible. The offensive line last year stunk. So you could improve, you could revamp your offensive line, but how much better did you actually get? How much better is this offensive line? And is this offensive line now a unit that could go get Colorado to bowl eligibility? Because that's the biggest question that I have for this Colorado season is, can they get to bowl eligibility? Because I don't care what Coach Prime says. I don't care what pundits say about Colorado. The thing I care about is to determine if this season is a success or not is, does Colorado get to bowl eligibility? Because to expect going into this year, oh, Colorado going back to the Big 12 is going to win a Big 12 championship, nonsense. There's a lot of really good teams out there in the Big 12. I don't see a road, I don't see a path where Colorado is in a Big 12 championship game or winning the Big 12 championship game. I just don't see it. And you got to remember, even though Colorado last year was the epicenter of the college football universe for the first 3 weeks of the season, practically in all of September, when you take a glance at Colorado and you really examine that team, there's a difference in excitement and there's a difference in a program dominating for a month and then dominating throughout the rest of the season. And this was a Colorado program that when Coach Prime took it over, it was in a really dreadful spot. And it was a win in year one because they got so many people talking about Colorado in the first month of the season. And I went into last year saying 4 or 5 wins for Colorado. I was not expecting a bowl game. But after they started off 3-0, they were embarrassing. They were dreadful down the stretch. They won one game. They were 1-8 down the stretch. Remember that Stanford game where they had that huge lead and they couldn't slam the door shut? So if there was a way to lose a game in their last 9 games, they found a way to lose it. So yes, last year was a mixed bag for Colorado. Last year for Colorado, really good start. Expectations change when you have a really good start because once you start 3-0, people expected a bowl game. And then they showed, okay, in the final 9 games, it kind of met where the national expectation was with Colorado. So going into this year, if you are a fair, reasonable person, and you could say what you want about me. Samter could say what he wants about me. Nico could say what he wants about me on the other side. But my fair, honest opinion on Colorado on what measures success, and I think I'm a fair, honest guy, is 6 wins. I don't think that's too steep for Colorado, and I also don't think that's me not giving Colorado enough credit. This team, bare minimum, has to get 6 wins. This team, bare minimum, has to get bowl eligibility. Because I'll kind of throw the Lincoln Riley factor into it. And you may be saying, why are you bringing up Lincoln Riley, Zach? You usually are very critical of Lincoln Riley. Well, when you look at Lincoln Riley, the last 2 years, he's had Caleb Williams. Now he doesn't. And in year 1 with Caleb Williams, he got to a Pac-12 championship game, and they lost that because Caleb Williams got hurt. Utah won it. And then last year with Caleb Williams, that team was maybe the most disappointing team in college football. And for USC, with Lincoln Riley, and that's a much bigger program than Colorado, you're probably not going to have a better quarterback than what you had with Caleb Williams, and you didn't take advantage of it. Colorado enters this season, in all likelihood, the last one for Shedeur Sanders, the last one for Travis Hunter. The chances of you finding a better player than Travis Hunter and a better quarterback than Shedeur Sanders to come to Buffalo and play for Coach Prime is pretty slim. So you have to pounce on this opportunity now. And if you don't get to a bowl game, and I'm not saying reach for the stars, I'm just saying get 6 damn wins and win a bowl game. If you can't do that then people are really going to start to throw Deion Sanders under a microscope and say, how good of a coach is he really? Because when he was at an HBCU, he was phenomenal. Now, this is a different ball game now at Colorado. And anything short of making a bowl game this year and getting to 6 wins would be viewed as a massive disappointment for this Colorado program. And I don't know how much longer Deion's going to be coaching at Colorado. Like, I think there's a legitimate conversation to be had. What happens with Coach Prime when Shedeur Sanders leaves? When Travis Hunter leaves? Does he try to go get more money? Does he try to take a job somewhere else? I think there's a lot of uncertainty because you know what Deion brings. Deion brings a jolt of energy to a program that needed it and a program that didn't have an identity. Deion has made Colorado relevant in the news cycle. He generates clicks. He brings attention to the program. With that being said, though, there's a difference in generating clicks. There's a difference in being relevant and then having a program that's talked about but then doesn't execute on the field. And this year for Colorado is about executing on the field. Last year, returned to the national spotlight. Last year, talked about a lot. Last year, Fox, ESPN, every show doing shows emanating from Boulder. It's one thing to generate clicks. It's one thing to generate attention, but now you need to generate success on the field. And a successful season this year for Colorado on the field is getting to 6 wins and making a bowl game. And when I look at their schedule, North Dakota State, at Nebraska, Colorado State, Baylor, UCF, Kansas State, Arizona, Cincinnati, Texas Tech, Utah, Kansas, Oklahoma State. Man, the Big 12 is not an easy road when you go through that. So when I look at Colorado this year, it would be good for college football if Coach Prime gets 6 wins. It would be good if Colorado gets bowl eligibility. However, I do think they're going to be improved from where they were a year ago. I got to hope the offensive line is significantly better. But that question I have is how much better is the offensive line actually? And with that uncertainty entering this season, I'm going to say Colorado has 1 more win than they had a year ago. And Colorado's only going to have 5 wins and they'll fall short of bowl eligibility. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. What's a successful season for Coach Prime in Colorado this year? 855-212-4227. 855-212-4227. We'll take a timeout. We'll come on back. We'll preview the Giants with Pat Leonard. But first, the biggest pro football contests in Vegas are back. Circa Survivor and Circa Millions are now up to $16 million in guaranteed prizes. You have 2 ways to win and no rake. Circa Survivor contestants select one team each week with no point spread, and if the team loses or ties, the entry is eliminated. You can only pick each team once in a season, last the longest to win it all, with $10 million guaranteed. In Circa Million, make 5 picks against the spread each week for your share of $6 million guaranteed, with quarterly and full season payouts. The entry that does the worst even wins $100,000. You must register at a Circa Sportsbook in Nevada, Las Vegas, Henderson, or Sparks, Reno. And we did the show live from Circa last week, and it was absolutely incredible. And man, the stadium swim outdoor sportsbook at the pool was a thing of beauty. Entries are now open, and they close September 7th at 2 p.m. Visit circasports.com. That's circasports.com for rules and details. Must be 21 and present in Nevada to enter. Paid for by Circa Sports.
You're in a 4-minute break. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Football season is right around the corner.
Holding himself, runs to the left, he's to the 5, Lamar's in, touchdown Ravens! They're going to have a championship game in Baltimore because the hay's in the barn!
Will it be your team's year to hoist the Lombardi?
In the shotgun, Mahomes. He runs and he throws, caught, touchdown! It's caught! Hardman caught the ball! The Chiefs have won! The Chiefs have won! The entire bench empties! Chasing Mahomes in the end zone! Their third Super Bowl in 5 years!
We preview all 32 teams right here on the Zach Gelb Show. The New York Giants.
And you could catch Pat Leonard talking NFL and the Giants all over the place. You want to listen to him talking ball with Pat Leonard across the Believe Network, you could do that. And you could also read his work as he is a columnist for the New York Daily News. And he is kind enough to join us right now as we preview Big Blue. Pat, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for doing this. How you been?
You got it, Zach. Been really, really good, and I'm starting to get that week one itch. You know, we're not quite there yet, but I'm feeling it. Let's go. Let's play some football here.
Yeah, I got the week one itch about like 4 weeks ago, so I'm happy that now you're joining that party. I want to start you off when you look at the Giants. We just opened up the show with Colorado playing North Dakota State tonight, talking about how Coach Prime has revamped his offensive line. But the question is, when you're revamping a bad offensive line, how much better did you actually get? Joe Shane did something similar this offseason. They had a bad offensive line, and now they've improved it. But how much improved is this offensive line, in your opinion?
No, that's a great question. They look like they're at least marginally improved. By that, I mean, when we saw them try to push the ball down the field in the preseason, we did see them give Daniel Jones time more often than what we've seen as far as the percentage goes of his dropbacks. Small sample size. I still see them turning guys loose every once in a while. So obviously you and I know it only takes one of those for a turnover or to force the quarterback into a mistake or a fumble, whatever it is. I would say in the running game right now, I need to see more even in the passing game. Throughout training camp, they have not moved the line of scrimmage to my liking. I think that they could do a better job of controlling the line of scrimmage in the run game. And obviously without Saquon Barkley, more important than ever to give guys like Devin Singletary, Tyrone Tracy, the rookie running back out of Purdue, some time to, some space to run with the ball. So, the one factor that is possibly holding the O-line back could be that they really haven't gotten a chance to play together as a 5 up until the last day of camp. They've been battling some injuries. John Runyon Jr., John Michael Schmitz, Jermaine Illuminor had some injuries. So they are going to have their starting 5 for week 1. That's the good news. But as you said, maybe it takes a few weeks to kind of hone in on that chemistry they're looking for.
Pat Leonard here with us. When you get to Daniel Jones, I know a lot of it is predicated off the offensive line. We know they tried to trade up for a quarterback in the draft and were unsuccessful when the Patriots kept the 3rd overall pick. I guess you could say it's a make-or-break year, but I expect this to be a break year for Daniel Jones once again, and next year he won't be starting at quarterback for the Giants. Yourself?
Yeah, I expect them to have a different starting quarterback next year. I think that the team as a whole still has enough problems from a personnel standpoint. I think it's going to be hard for them to overcome against some of their opponents even early in the season against a team like the Minnesota Vikings. Daniel, everything looks as good as it could right now, and what I mean by that is there were questions that he was going to be healthy enough for camp or even week 1. There are no health questions about that knee. There are no health questions about his neck. He has those 2 neck injuries in the past. So the health looks good. He's pushing the ball well. That Houston game, though, has the whole Giants fan base on edge, and for good reason, right? They looked like a lot of the same mistakes. I'll say this. The one optimistic view of it is Daniel has a chip on his shoulder. He's always been a motivated player, but we've seen an edge from him so far in interviews and even on the field that we haven't seen prior. And, Zach, you know why. It's because he sees the writing on the wall, and he also didn't really appreciate seeing his team trying to replace him in the draft. So maybe that translates into better production, the fact that he's playing a little bit angry.
And there's a lot of juicy names that are already being thrown around. Maybe it happens in the draft with them taking a Carson Beck or a Shedeur Sanders. If Kirk Cousins tries to get out of Atlanta after 1 year, maybe that's a trade that comes to fruition. But you mentioned Saquon Barkley not that long ago, who bolted the Giants for the Eagles. What about Dak potentially bolting the Cowboys to join the Giants this offseason?
Yeah, I don't think that's a crazy name to bring up at all. And so a lot of people in the league think if it comes to that and the Giants need a quarterback, that means they're going to have a high pick, it's a bad record, and they're going to draft one. But Joe Shane, if he remains the general manager next season, he has shown a propensity for kind of big game hunting, right? Like we saw him trade for Brian Burns at a priority position, edge rusher. He's now the third highest paid edge rusher in the league, behind only Nick Bosa and Josh Allen. We saw him sign Bobby Okereke for significant money at inside linebacker. Really, the Giants wanted to build through the draft, supplement through free agency. It's kind of been a little bit the other way around, even on the offensive line, paying for John Runyon Jr. So all of that is to say, I do think Joe Shane would be the type of GM who would go and try to open up that checkbook for a quarterback like Dak Prescott potentially if it comes to that.
Pat Leonard here with us as we preview the Giants. Going off of that, what does Joe Shane and Brian Daboll have to do, bare minimum, to be back next year? Because the Giants could be bad, and I could also see them still bringing back their GM and coach with what they did earlier on in their Giant tenure.
Yeah, it depends, right? So I think with Daboll calling plays full time now, with his seat is red hot, and Joe Shane's is warm if not hot too. The first thing is the offense has to be not only better, but consistently competent, right? That's why he was hired in the first place. It was to run a high-powered offense to help Daniel Jones take the next step, help the offense take the next step. So they were averaging under 16 points a game last season. It has to get better there. So to your point, if Daniel Jones and Malik Neighbors are showing some things and they're scoring points and still losing some games, you could look at parts of this team and say, okay, we still see where it's going. These guys come back, et cetera. But Wink Martindale resigns. New defensive coordinator Shane Bowen. If the bottom falls out on that, that's largely in part to some dysfunction created by Daboll and the management of the team last year. So that could always point right back at him. But Zach, I think you ask an important question here, which is what's it going to take? And if it gets bad, how is it going to be evaluated by ownership, right? Because they had a great first season that exceeded all expectations, but then it slid down into the dumps in year two. I think we're entering a season where we find out which year was the anomaly, and even though they inherited a bad operation, a team that needed a lot of work from Dave Gettleman, I do think there's more pressure on this duo at the top of the Giants' masthead than people on the outside might realize.
And what I'm about to say, I think it's very ambiguous, but they just can't be embarrassing. Like, you could only have 6 or 7 wins and not be embarrassing. Like, you look at what happened towards the end with Joe Judge. That was embarrassing when they were kneeling down the football. So this team could be bad, but Pat, as you know, Pat Leonard, there's a difference in being bad and then being embarrassing.
Yeah, definitely. And so to your point, like we've talked about the offensive line. Last year's offensive line, if you see a repeat of that, people get fired for things like that, right? Versus if the line is better and there are some breakdowns, but you see progress. And for Joe Shane, you know, the way that your team does not get embarrassed is we talked about the free agents that they've signed, guys who are more kind of premium players, but you need your draft picks to start panning out, right? Deontay Banks, Kayvon Thibodeau, Evan Neal, obviously, potentially a lost cause at this point, but even John Michael Schmitz, Wan'Dale Robinson, these guys are second-round picks on the offense. It's time for those guys to go. And so that really is going to bring you full circle to kind of a simpler evaluation when you get to the end of the season of if it gets bad, why, and then you can really kind of judge it accordingly.
What do the Giants have, by the way, in Malik Neighbors, in your opinion?
So I would say big picture, forget Shane Daboll and this season. Big picture, I think they have a building block piece. Like there's a lot of these players you're still waiting to see what they are. Neighbors looks like the kind of guy who, even if a new coach and GM end up coming in here, he's the kind of player who maybe is going to attract some players to sign here, who the next quarterback's going to come in and have success with, right? He even might end up being the guy who helps Daniel Jones put it all together. I mean, he looks like a hit from what we've seen early on. He's got to take it to the games. He's got to take it to the field. But I think this is the kind of player that you need to add to your team in order to say 3 years from now, like the Houston Texans, for example, a team that had been down in the dumps year in and year out. But if you hit on enough of those premier end talents, suddenly you look up and you have 6, 7, 8 guys plus a star quarterback, and now people are picking you to go to the Super Bowl. This is one of those types of players if the Giants put it all together around him.
A few more minutes with Pat Leonard, who joins us right now as we preview the Giants. Defensively, Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau. You have Bobby Okereke, I think, is such an underrated defensive player in this league. When you look at the Giants' defense, how far are you willing to go with what this unit can accomplish this year?
I'm concerned about their ability to stop the run. They really don't have much behind Dexter Lawrence on the interior of the defensive line. Burns and Thibodeau, better pass rushers than run defenders in the past, at least, as precedent shows. So I think teams are actually going to run the ball on them until they prove they can stop it. Now, Okereke has helped them with that, has done that for them since he signed, had a great year last year. You know, I think Martindale was very good at confusing offenses, forcing turnovers. I think this defense is going to be a much simpler scheme, and they're going to count on that front four to rush the quarterback, get to the quarterback. They need to, though, because the secondary is young, it's inexperienced. They didn't address all the holes they have back there. I personally think, Zach, the defense, while it has some exciting players, and Burns looks very good, don't get me wrong.
Sure.
I think the defense is going to slide a little, and I think that the offense's improvement isn't just imperative because of how bad it was last year. I think they're going to need to win some high-scoring games. And so that's the way I see this unfolding.
Very interesting. Before we let Pat Leonard run, because I know you're at all the training camps, right? You're at all the joint practices, all the preseason games. I actually feel bad for some of the NFL media during this time of the year with what you guys have to track. But with what you've had to track, who's a player on the offensive side of the ball and a player on the defensive side of the ball that you're like, he's impressed me and maybe not getting a lot of national coverage with the Giants this year?
Yeah, interesting. No, that's a good question. I would say on the Giants offense, Tyrone Tracy Jr., fifth-round pick out of Purdue. They only have three running backs on the roster: Devin Singletary, Eric Gray, and Tracy. Tracy, first of all, is much bigger than you would expect a rookie running back to be. He's a converted wide receiver. Told me he gained, I think it was 12 pounds basically of muscle going into his final year at Purdue when he changed over. He was lifting weights with the offensive line with the Boilermakers in order to gain weight and gain muscle for the position change, and you can see it. He's their short yardage back right away coming in for the Giants. I think he's a guy who in the pass game, too, as a converted receiver can help them. Someone who's not being talked about a lot, but people should know about. And then on the defensive side of the ball, I would say at inside linebacker, when he gets healthy, Deontay Johnson, I think, is a player who showed a lot before he hurt his ankle. He just went on injured reserve for the team, so he's out the first 4 weeks. But he's hungry, he's athletic, he plays with tenacity, and they need somebody to step up next to Okereke on the inside. So once he gets healthy, I like Deontay Johnson to kind of surprise some people when he gets back in the lineup.
He is a Giants beat writer, also an NFL columnist for the New York Daily News. Make sure you check him out on the Believe Network as well. Talking ball with Pat Leonard. That's our pal, Pat Leonard. Pat, appreciate you previewing the Giants with us today.
You got it, Zach. Thanks for having me.
You got it. There he is, Pat Leonard. Really good stuff there. And I'll bring in Marco Belletti right now, who I know is a Giants fan, as we preview the Giants. I was stunned to hear Pat say that they're going to actually need the offense, if they're going to win games, to be the reason high-scoring affairs, because when you look at this team, yeah, I get it, right? It's the NFL. It's the way that it goes now, points. But, when I look at both sides of the ball, I feel more confident with the defense entering this season rather than I do with the offense of the Giants.
Yeah, I agree with Pat. I really do. The offensive line, now that it's stable and it's, believe it or not, an actual NFL offensive line, and I've said this, I've been on record, a lot of people scratch their heads and tell me I'm crazy. They're better offensively without Saquon Barkley. And it's not because Saquon Barkley is not a good player. It's not. It's because they got into the habit of the last 4 years of staring at Saquon and waiting for him to play.
Yeah.
And it was, you ripped off a 62-yard run. Too bad you're down 27-10. So I think they're going to be much better in the fact that it's going to be Dable calling the plays. They're going to be pass-oriented. They're going to be looking to get things started from the opening kickoff instead of when Saquon going to bust one open for us to get our offense going. And I think they're going to be better for it. So I do think the offense and Neighbors is going to be a stud. So I think that all kind of blends in. Stable line, new passing type coordinator, if you will, and Neighbors, it changes everything.
When you look at Daniel Jones, I would assume the answer is no here. That's just the way that I feel. But do you think he's back next year starting for the Giants week 1 next year?
Yes.
You do?
I do.
What the heck kind of Kool-Aid are you drinking?
I think he has a monster season.
This is the most positive I think I've ever heard you be.
I'm not, again, I'm not the positive guy. This is
that's
not
why I'm shocked. My
not
jaw's
right.
hitting the floor here.
Because this is not straight optimism. This is not, oh, you're going to look it through Giants. I see what the plan is, and I do feel like without Saquon, they're better because the mindset. With the offensive line stable, with all the weapons that he has, they're going to put it in his hands right from the start. And Brian Dable calling the plays. There's no buffer anymore. There's the two of them married together. I've never questioned the talent of Daniel Jones. I questioned what he was thinking in times, and more importantly, can he stay healthy? If he's healthy, he's going to put up a better year than he did 2 years ago. He puts up a better year than he did 2 years ago, he's going to be their quarterback. You're talking about maybe 4,500 yards of offensive production if he has a better year than 2 years ago. Why would you move on from that with a guy that's, 17th, 18th now? If you look at $40 million per because of the way the quarterback salaries have gotten out of hand, why would you want to move on?
Also, I'll ask you this. Let's say it is a disaster. Let's say he gets hurt or he doesn't live up to what the Marco Belletti hype is. I never thought I had to say those words into a microphone on this network. But when you get to the future, I threw out the names of Carson Beck, Shador Sanders, maybe a trade for Kirk Cousins, and then inevitably Saquon left the Giants to go to the Eagles. Maybe Dak leaves the Cowboys to come to New York. Pat said Joe Shane's the type of GM that would go get a deal done with Dak to get that a possibility. Out of 100% right now as you enter this season. I know you think Daniel's going to be back, but what's the percentage that Dak next year is playing for the New York Football Giants?
I think it's low. I think it's
5%?
At best.
Okay.
Partly it's because I do feel like eventually Jerry Jones will figure it out and he'll get Dak Prescott back in Dallas. So that's a big part of that. That's a big part of that. But on top of that, I don't know if the Giants are going to be in the position to be able to outbid somebody to give Dak Prescott more than $60 million, which is probably what he's going to have to do to be able to get him to come to New York. So I don't know if that's even remotely possible with the Giants explore. Look, Daniel Jones has if you get hurt, if you don't perform, there is nothing. You could have the Aaron Rodgers mulligan all you want. There's nothing that could happen to give Daniel Jones a mulligan this year. Zero, nothing. So they're going to be on the hunt for a quarterback if it doesn't work out. They'll think Dak Prescott. I have a hard time believing that would actually come to fruition.
It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We'll come on back. The Lions have turned it around. Who's a team in sports that you would love to see turn around and start to have some success like the Lions are now getting accustomed to? But first, with the latest Infinity Sports Network update, huge Daniel Jones fan. I didn't even know it. It's El Capitan, Marco Belletti.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
Zach, we're sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Protect your home and auto. Save when you bundle. Get a quote. Progressive.com. Warriors lost Klay Thompson. No interest in losing Steph Curry. Agreed to a one-year extension. $62.6 million. Guarantees him now $178 million over the next 3 years. Jacoby Brissett, your starting quarterback for the Patriots. Head coach Drake Maye made the decision to go Brissett over third overall pick Drake Maye. Does Mayo still envision the rookie taking over at some point this season?
I don't want to get into hypotheticals. We can't go into the season saying, well, he's going to go X amount of weeks. Look, as long as Jacoby's going out there performing the way that we all have confidence in him doing, he'll be our quarterback this season.
Still not the new Hassan Reddick situation for the Jets. GM Joe Douglas trying to remain optimistic. The situation will eventually have a happy ending.
From our standpoint, we've been really clear and direct with our communication, and again, a lot of respect for the agent, a lot of respect for the player, and I have faith that this will all give result.
Baseball, Brewers lead the Giants 6-0. Rangers in front of the White Sox 1-0 in the 6th. Cardinals 2, Padres 0 there in the 5th. Marlins lead the Rockies 1-0 in the 2nd. I'm Marco Belletti.
The Infinity Sports Network is on your smart speaker. All you have to say is play Infinity Sports Network. That's it. Play Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
This is the Infinity Sports Network.
And this portion of the show is sponsored by Hyundai's bold family of EVs that bring a new kind of energy to your journey. The Ioniq 5 and 5N Ioniq 6 and Kona Electric, the most electric EV lineup. I told you last night that I was going to watch the Connor Stallions documentary, and I ended up doing so last night. And I thought it was good. I wouldn't say that it was great. I thought it was definitely interesting. Like, I knew that Connor Stalions was a sycophant before becoming a part of the Michigan coaching staff in some capacity. So when I look at the whole documentary, I did not know that he dressed up as a Michigan coach for Halloween. With that being said, that's something that I did as a kid. Not dressed up as the Michigan coach, but I dressed up as Mike Piazza like 4 or 5 times because I was a huge Mets fan. But when you go through his progression, the reason why he joined the Navy is because he talked about how many coaches had a military background that ended up being all-time great coaches, and he wanted to be a coach. Now he's coaching in some school in Detroit or Michigan on the defensive side of the ball as a defensive coordinator at some high school. But when he was at Navy and he volunteered with the Navy football team, and this guy hates Ohio State. His first game was actually against Ohio State. And I didn't realize that.
On Navy staff before he came to Michigan. So I thought that was really cool.
So, yeah, I thought it was solid. I think it was worth the watch. That was the least serious out of all the documentaries that I want to watch. I said I want to tap into the Scott and Lacey Peterson, which involves murder, which is tragic, obviously. And there was one more thing. Another tragic story, the Steve McNair documentary that I guess has come on out. So I crossed one off the list last night. I started with the least serious one, and that was with the whole Connor Stalions thing. Anyway, let's hear from Brad Holmes on if winning has made it easier to sign free agents. This is the GM of the Detroit Lions.
Yes, it has been different. In the past, we were doing a lot of, I'd say for the first 2 years, we had to do a lot of selling and convincing constantly just to try to get guys here. And that's in probably each phase of player acquisition. But now, it does feel good, and it makes you feel good that, we've done something and we've accomplished some good things that, these agents want to send their players here.
So I look around all the other sports. Let me quickly bang out the NBA, the NHL, and Major League Baseball. I want to see the Pirates actually be good. After going to that stadium, it's a wonderful stadium. That team, they've had a little success, but they've mainly been bad. Now you have Paul Skeens. They got to get their damn act together. NHL, this team is good. They just fail in the postseason. I would actually like to see the Maple Leafs one day win a Stanley Cup. Forever it was, can they get out of the first round? They finally got out of the first round, and it didn't last that much longer. It keeps on being big-time player, but embarrassing performances in the postseason. The NBA, I don't know why. Growing up as a kid, I loved the Sacramento Kings because of Peja Stojakovic and Mike Bibby. That was a team that I just always used in video games. The Kings had a little success 2 years ago. I want to see that team not only continue to make the postseason, but take it to the next level. And I'm a big fan of De'Aaron Fox. And then for the NFL, it's the Raiders and the Commanders. Two passionate fan bases. The Raiders now in Las Vegas. The Commanders now, it feels like they have their team back with Daniel Snyder no longer owning it and it being Josh Harris. The Commanders have their quarterback. Now he's got to go get the job done in Jaden Daniels. But that's a fan base that used to be one of the best fan bases in the league. And now it's a fan base that it feels like there's a lot of apathy. Like they don't even care. So hopefully they do come back with Dan Snyder being out and they get the right quarterback in Jaden Daniels. And for the Raiders, they need a quarterback. They got some good players, man. You got Devontae Adams. You got Max Crosby. You got Christian Wilkins, a little excitement with Antonio Pierce now being the full-time head coach. But you look at the quarterback situation. When Derek Carr has been your best quarterback in like the last 15 years, that's not a good thing. And I'm not going to get all excited and delirious about Gardner Minshew now. So I like to see the Raiders and Commanders start to get their damn act together as well. All right, it is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Hour number 1, put it in the books. When we come on back, a Hall of Fame cornerback's going to join us. The great Champ Bailey, as we'll talk a little NFL and college football with him. Off and running, very busy Thursday edition of the show. We got 2 more hours to play. It's a Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. You can always give me a follow on social media, Twitter and Instagram at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. And you hit me up on my phone lines, 855-212-4227. That's 855-212-4227. Back with more next.
You're in a 5-minute break. 4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Alrighty, hour number 2 of our radio program. That's right, it is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We're now going to be joined by the legendary Pro Football Hall of Famer Champ Bailey, who joins us today on behalf of the Champ Bailey Family Foundation, helping children through mental health, wellness, and educational programs. And on Tuesday, Champ visited the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta to meet with pediatric patients battling cancer. Champ, appreciate the time as always. Thanks so much for doing this. And how you been?
My pleasure, Zach. Great to see you. I've been great, man. You know, just trying to do my part in this world.
Well, you're in the penthouse now. You know that with the college football school that you played for in Georgia. Man, I know they didn't make the playoff last year, but 2 national championships before that. And everyone's kind of feeling like they're going to go get one again this year. How about your alma mater?
I tell you what, man, we all know last year we should have had a chance, right? So we do have a little bit of a sour taste in our mouth, so to speak. So I'm anxious to see where we start out. You know, Clemson's not a walkover program, right? Top 15 team. We got our hands full, but these boys are ready. I think we like I say, we got one stolen from us. And here we are. We got a chance to win 3 out of the last 4 years. I'm just looking forward to it.
Yeah, do you like this 12-team college football playoff format? Because personally, I thought for most years 4 was the right number, and if they were going to expand it, maybe only go to 6 or 8. 12 seems like a pretty big jump.
It is. It is. I think when you look on paper, I mean, that's 3 times the size, right? If my math is right. But in reality, man, you want to get more teams in it. It creates more excitement. You actually have the top teams. There's no doubt you have the top teams at that point. I think what's going to get gray is, you know, the automatic bids and the bye week. And, you know, people are going to argue, okay, this team lost 1 game, this team lost 4, but they won their conference. You know, so that's going to be the major argument in my mind. But I like the 12 teams.
It's a good point that you bring up, because I was talking about this a few weeks ago. It's like, all right, you know, the Big Ten and the SEC winner are going to be deserving of a top 4 seed. But then inside the ACC or the Big 12, like there could be a team that's 5th or 6th that's more deserving of getting that bye, but they didn't win their conference championship. And it also doesn't make sense to me how you say, all right, the 4 highest ranked conference champions get a bye, but then the other school that gets in and wins their conference championship, they could be seated anywhere you want. So I think there's going to be some things this year that you look at the teams and you're like, the top 4 seeds may not be the best 4 teams in college football.
Yeah, I think we're starting off right? Like, I think the 12 teams is a legitimate way to go about it. And you make a good point. There will be those teams, but we have to start somewhere. We all know we're going to evolve, and this thing is probably going to go to a straight ranking system, sort of like the NFL. So it's not so much, you know, winning your conference, you know, that's going to be the thing later on. Because in my opinion, I think all these conferences are going to disappear to some degree, and maybe we have 2 major. But, you know, that's just me.
No, I think you're on to something. We already saw the Pac-12 go away, and it seems like the Big Ten and the SEC are the haves, and everyone else is in the have-nots. So the future of college football is definitely fascinating. And we start off on Saturday, right? Georgia going up against Clemson. I think Georgia's going to win the game, Champ Bailey. But you look at Clemson, we all know what they've done with Dabo Swinney, winning 2 national championships. But it's a new era of college football, and he's kind of been stubborn in adapting. And I just want to see how much of a difference there still is between Georgia and Clemson. I think there's going to be a pretty big one on Saturday.
Yeah, you know, we're loaded, they're loaded. And it's really going to come down to the same thing with these top teams. What happens in the trenches? And you can talk about Dabo not adapting as well as some other programs. Well, Dabo still won 10 games the past 20 years or whatever. You know, he's been there forever. But the past 15 years, he's won 10 games. So it's not like he's not an effective and consistent coach. It's just now there's so much turnover. But he does have some consistency at the quarterback position finally. And, you know, that interior has always been elite among other programs. So you can't sleep on these teams, especially this Clemson team.
Champ Bailey here with us. Let me get to some of your NFL teams, and we'll talk about your foundation in just a bit. I'll start you off with the Broncos. Sean ends up taking Bo Nix with the 12th overall pick. What are your expectations as he's going to be starting week 1 for Denver?
Whoa, it's hard to have high expectations for a rookie, right? But I feel like this kid he's got something. Now he's going to have some bumps in the road. It's all about how he handles those adverse situations. The turnovers early. Does he bounce back in that game, or does he wait the next week and make up for that? But for me, I think they made the right choice with him. I don't want to go overboard because I've seen the track record of rookie quarterbacks, but they do have a good core around him. Great offensive line. The defense looks like they're coming into their own. So I would say after 4 weeks, I love to sit back and reevaluate where they could go from there.
And when you start with the Broncos, I know we all talk about the coach and the quarterback, but the best player on the roster is Patrick Surtain. You being a Hall of Fame defensive back, what have you seen so far with Pat Surtain?
Exactly what I expected. This kid is the best in the game right now. When he came out of college, I said he has a Pro Football Hall of Fame potential. Like that's the lofty goals I set for him, because you look at his body type, his style of play, a technician, plays hard, loves the game. It's everything that you would want in a football player. Forget position. It's a football player. He is that. And now he's an elite corner with the way he plays the game. There is no doubt in my mind he'll continue to excel. I expect him to go to as many Pro Bowls as I did, be a first ballot Hall of Famer, all these things. All he has to do is stay healthy. And that's the only thing that can get in his way, because when he plays, he's the best.
Why do you put Pat over Sauce Gardner? Because that's always a big debate on who's the best corner in the league.
Well, I watch him more closely, right? I haven't watched a lot of Sauce Gardner. He's very effective, very good corner. Love his game. I mean, he's in my top 3 for sure. But it's just something about Pat's game. I might be a little biased there, being that he's donning that Bronco helmet. But this guy is bar none the best. I mean, you can make an argument for Sauce, no doubt about it. But I think Pat still's at the top.
Let me get also to the Commanders. I know when you played, they were called the Redskins. They also have a new quarterback in Jaden Daniels, who won a Heisman Trophy at LSU. Daniel Snyder no longer the owner there, with Josh Harris coming in. I don't know how much you've been able to see of Jaden Daniels, but how about him and what he brings with not only able to run the ball, but also have a big-time arm as well?
I think that's always a bonus for a young quarterback, to be able to use his legs, because he's not going to see everything clearly, starting out the gate. But this kid is unique. I mean, he's fast, he can run, but he throws with the best of them. I mean, it sort of reminds me a little of Lamar Jackson, maybe not as great a runner, but effective enough that you have to worry about it. And we all know, like, you look at the quarterback landscape today, most of these guys are very mobile, very accurate, and can do a lot of things well. So as I've seen the quarterback position evolve, he fits into that mold. So the league is set up right for him. Defense coordinators definitely got their hands full.
Talking about defensive coordinators, the biggest question in the league, Champ Bailey, is how do people try to slow down Patrick Mahomes? Even when he's not at his best, they still find a way to win back-to-back Super Bowls. If you were going up against Patrick Mahomes, kind of take me through how you would try to game plan, as we know not only in just the AFC West, but everyone in the league is chasing Patrick Mahomes, number 15 of the Chiefs.
Yeah, the thing with him, you got to make him work for it. And what I mean, you can't give up the deep ball. You can't allow him to scramble for first downs. It's winning those situations that matter, the third downs, the fourth downs. You got to get off the field, because what happens when they stay on the field, now that run game gets going. He has Pacheco back there, who's very effective. So it's the people around him that he can utilize, but you got to quit giving him opportunities to do it. Get off on third down, you nullify their offense.
Wrap it up with Champ Bailey right now. Before we let you run, tell me a little bit about your foundation and the great work that you're doing.
Well, my foundation, we do a lot with kids, from a mental and physical health standpoint. And, a lot of my work has been done in my hometown of Folkestone, Georgia, and I continue to do a lot there. But, my best partner to date has been Aflac, and it's the most recent. But what I saw them do at the Cancer and Blood Disorder Center, it's nothing short of amazing. You walk into that building and you walk into those rooms of those kids that are dealing with illnesses that they didn't decide this life for themselves. But you see their perseverance, their at least enthusiasm. You know, I walk into one room and there's this kid, he just come out of surgery, and we hand him the special Aflac duck. It's a robot. I mean, he just puts his thumb up, and the Aflac president, Virgil Miller, looks at me and says, man, he got his thumb up, you know, and I'm like, he can barely open his eyes, but you can feel that energy. The kid just wants to be a kid. And I leave there more inspired by them than I do for them. I know they inspire me more than I inspire them. They have to, because, I mean, it's hard not to get teary-eyed when you see them in those conditions. And the parents, the energy from the parents, I just try to feed off them. You know, they're the ones dealing with it every day, and they sit there and they smile when we walk in. They don't have to do that. And they know sharing their stories with us and allowing us to be a part of it only affects somebody else across the country dealing with the same thing. And, you know, I got to give it to them, all the caregivers, and what Aflac has done at that center. It's amazing.
You know, just wondering, obviously when you were playing, there was a lot of opportunities to give back. I know you still have the platform even when your career is over, but you still want to go out of your way to give back, even when you're not as much in the spotlight as you once were, which I think, you know, speaks to who you are as a person. Why do you still feel as if, okay, Champ Bailey, it's still important even after your playing days to keep on using your platform and giving on back?
You know, I honestly don't have a perfect answer for you. I feed off the people that inspire me the most, and I can speak that about my grandmother, like what she did growing up, and I had no idea the impact she was having on her community, taking in homeless, you know, having a neighborhood store. She was so business savvy and understanding what it meant to give back without asking for much in return. Like this is who I am. I mean, she's in my DNA. I just want to be half as good as she was at giving back. And she was the epitome of what it meant to be a giver. And when I leave this earth and people say that about me, I'll be happy with that.
Before we let you run, Champ Bailey, I got to bring up Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, who was a teammate of yours for one season.
Big game tonight.
Yeah. Up against North Dakota State. What was it like when Coach Prime, you being a younger player in the league at the time, was a teammate of yours?
You have no idea. Like, my rookie year, I got Darryl Green. And then the second year, I still got Darryl Green, but here comes Deion Sanders. Oh, my God. You got to think. 3 of us on the field every game that year. The moment they signed him, my first question was, oh, my God, what am I going to do? Am I starting? I started my rookie year. I didn't think that I was better than these guys at that point. But the coach assured me that I was still going to start. Somebody else was coming off the bench. But so we worked that out. But, man, these guys taught me so much. And then when Deion left after that first year, I still had Darryl Green 2 more years. So I got a lot of good nuggets from those guys. And they inspired me to give back even more than they did, because I know how that impacted my game. And I can't thank them enough for what they gave me.
Were you a better player than Deion Sanders?
Come on, man.
I had to ask the
Deion's
question.
the best. Look, those 2 guys I mentioned, I'll never put myself over them. I mean, for obvious reasons. They were great players and great men. Never put myself above them.
No, I definitely respect that answer. So you talked about, right, big game tonight for Colorado. Have you seen a lot of Shedeur Sanders, as you know, people are talking about early first-round pick for him maybe coming up in April?
Oh, yeah, I've seen a little bit of him since high school. And, you know, the kid is the real deal. The thing I like about him is he takes it serious. I mean, and it's not like you have to push it on him. He's one of those kids that loves the game. I mean, forget all the things that they do outside of the game, which I think is very impactful as well. But when they step on the field, it's serious business. And that's what I expect from him all year and at the next level.
There he is, Champ Bailey. Champ, we appreciate the time as always. Once again, Champ Bailey has joined us today on behalf of the Champ Bailey Family Foundation. Also does great work with Aflac, and on Tuesday he visited the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta to meet with pediatric patients battling cancer. Champ, always appreciate the good work that you do whenever you're on the show and then also off the show as well. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Zach. Good to see you.
You got it. Thanks so much. There he is, Champ Bailey, joining us. A lot of good stuff there from that conversation, talking about Georgia and their massive success, obviously, with Kirby Smart, and then tap it into, obviously, the Commanders, the Broncos, and then ended up the conversation with Coach Prime and his program at Colorado. 15 past the hour. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. To no surprise, Jacoby Brissett is going to be the starting quarterback for the Patriots. Was it the right decision, though? We'll discuss next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. 30 seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Watch the breakdown.
Welcome back to the Infinity Sports Network.
I will say as well, from our conversation with Champ Bailey, and I don't know, maybe this is a generational thing, and ever since I turned 30, I'm starting to really play the old guy card. And I'm not old. Like, I'm still really young. I'm understanding of that. But I'm starting to get into, like, this generational attitude type of talk. Like, even last night, I was catching up with a buddy of mine who is a manager somewhere. And I was just talking about how the work ethic is a little bit different. And sometimes, when you're coming up in a business, you got to do some things that aren't the most favorable hours and you have to work some odd shifts. Like, I told him a story how I was talking to a young broadcaster about 2 months ago. And he said, I want to be on the air. And I said, okay, would you be willing to work Thanksgiving from 2 to 6 a.m. or Christmas 2 to 6 a.m. or, whatever holidays you celebrate from 2 to 6 a.m.? He's like, no. He's like, that's family time. And I'm like, well, those are the hours I had to work. So if you ask me, how'd you get to where you've got at such a young age? Like, everyone has to bite the bullet at some point in their career. Like, yeah, it'd be great if someone just hands you a bag of cash and they say, okay, you don't have to put in some of the tough work. But, I was talking to that buddy of mine, and he was having an issue at his company where there was a client that they needed to do extra work for, and a lot of people are like, it's Labor Day coming up, or, I got dinner with my girlfriend that I have to go to, things like that, so I can't stay late to do that work. So we were having that discussion. But the reason I bring that up is you just heard the joy in Champ Bailey's voice when I brought up Deion Sanders. And then he also talked about how he played with Darryl Green as well when he was a part of the Redskins. And I just asked him the question, like, who was better? Was it you or was it Deion? And I feel like now that if you're, like, Champ Bailey is in that conversation, obviously, with those other two great players. When you're a Hall of Famer, you're in that conversation. So Champ Bailey could have easily said himself, and could you argue it? Yes, but it's not like inconceivable. Oh my goodness gracious, what Champ Bailey said is ridiculous. Like, trying to think of a random corner. It wasn't like, I don't know why I'm thinking of the name Lee Bodden. I don't know why. That was the random name. He had one really great year for the Patriots, but it's not like him saying, yeah, I'm better than Deion Sanders or I'm better than Darryl Green, right? It's Champ frickin' Bailey. So I did appreciate with how much he admired those two guys and the respect that he has for those two guys. He was like, I will never say that I'm better than those two guys. But I don't know. Now, I feel like in a younger generation, there's a lack of respect. And maybe this is always the same way in life, but there's a lack of respect for history. And if you think, like, after 2 years, you're great, then you could say, I'm better than everybody else. It's kind of like the whole Magic Johnson, Anthony Edwards situation that just recently happened. And Magic, I love Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards, to me, future face of the NBA. But Magic was like, never won a college championship, hasn't won an NBA championship, because I don't even know if he won a high school championship. So maybe you pipe down a bit before you're talking about other great players from previous eras, It's well documented. I'm not a fan of J.J. Redick, but when J.J. Redick was really laying into the fireman and plumber line when talking about Bob Cousy, it was just like a blatant disrespect for people that paved the way before. So I thought that was a neat answer and a pretty respectable answer from Champ Bailey. Anyway, let's hear from Gerard Mayo, the head football coach of the New England Patriots, which is still bizarre to say, because I remember when Gerard Mayo was drafted. This was the first Zach Gelb hot take that I remember. The Patriots had an early first-round pick that year. They ended up trading back and getting Gerard Mayo. But Vernon Gholston was there. And I really wanted Vernon Gholston to be on the Patriots. And thankfully, the Jets were the Jets. And they took Vernon Gholston. Belichick, all right, we'll let the Jets take Vernon Gholston there in front of us. We'll trade back, and we'll select this linebacker out of Tennessee. And not only that linebacker out of Tennessee ended up being a good player, had some injuries, but was a very good player for the Patriots. He ended up joining the coaching staff, and now he's the head coach of the damn team. So here is Gerard Mayo on starting Jacoby Brissett over Drake Maye.
There is no, you got a guy right here, you got a guy right there. We're 100% behind Jacoby. I had an opportunity to talk to Drake. I had an opportunity to talk to Jacoby separately and also together. And I feel like we're all on the same page from an organizational perspective. The hard part is thinking in the short term and the long term at the same time. As an organization, though, we feel like Jacoby gives us our best chance to win right now.
I'm going to call cap on that. I don't think Jacoby Brissett won the job. I know it's announced, hey, he won the job. He's a starting quarterback. I understand that. So if you listen to what I just said and you go, oh, Gelb, you're an idiot. You're a moron. You're a dope. How can you say that Jacoby Brissett didn't win the job? I don't think he was the better quarterback. I think in the preseason you saw Drake Maye be the better quarterback. I know it's just the preseason. So as Champ said about Bo, I'm not going to be delirious. Let's see some games that actually count. But now in this new football fandom that I have, where I have to be like the rest of you, and I don't just wake up and expect my team to be in an AFC championship game and go, okay, this is when the real season starts. When I go into a regular football fan mode, yes, there were moments in the preseason, well, I'll admit it and swallow my pride when doing so, that I was excited about what I saw from Drake Maye. So if you go from who's the better quarterback and who gives the Patriots the better chance to win, just based off the quarterback position, Drake Maye or Jacoby Brissett, it's Drake Maye. But the Patriots are looking at this from a long-term approach. Drake Maye, let me be clear, he didn't lose the quarterback job. The reason why Drake Maye isn't starting, because he's proven that he's more NFL ready to start than what people thought coming out of college. He's ready to start tomorrow. However, the team around him isn't ready. This offensive line has the potential to be maybe one of the worst offensive lines we've ever seen. Wide receivers, sure, I'm intrigued by Polk, second-round draft pick out of Washington. Baker, people have soured on, but maybe he could put it together. But you look at this wide receiver room, there's no A.J. Brown, I'll tell you that. Heck, there's no Devontae Smith. There's no Tyreek Hill. Heck, there's no Jalen Waddle. There's no Jamar Chase. Heck, there's no T. Higgins. There are teams' number 2 wide receivers that would be number 1 wide receivers in New England. Easily. And it's not even close. And the Patriots, I believe, Jacoby Brissett won the QB battle in terms of who do we throw to the wolves? Because Drake Maye is the future. Now, we'll see if he'll be great. We'll see if he'll be worth the 3rd overall pick in the draft. But how many times when teams quickly pull the rug out from underneath their quarterback early, how many times does a quarterback get thrown into a game too early and then, poof, within a year or two, they're making their next pick? Mac Jones, his first year, was a controlled environment. He started day 1, they made the playoffs. And then they didn't put him in the best position to succeed. Now, I'm not saying Mac is going to be great somewhere else. Heck, there's a reason why he's holding a clipboard in Jacksonville. But the Patriots failed Mac Jones. And even though I look at this regime right now with Elliott Wolf and Gerard Mayo, and the offensive line sucks, the wide receivers, there's not a bona fide number 1 wide receiver that has a proven track record on the roster right now. This, to me, is the Patriots saying, yes, Drake showed us a lot. Even Gerard Mayo, he said it the other day on WEEI that in preseason, Drake has been the better quarterback. that was an admission from the coach that if this was a true competition on who the better player is, that Drake would have won the job. But the reason why we're going with Jacoby, even though he doesn't say it, but this is how I interpret it, is because Drake's our future. And Drake checked enough boxes. And let's be real, we know we're not really going anywhere this year. So behind this crappy O-line and a wide receiver room that hasn't shown much, maybe in the first few weeks of the season, when we throw Jacoby to the wolves, the offensive line could develop some chemistry. Maybe Polk breaks out. Maybe Baker breaks out. And inevitably, whether it's because, unfortunately, Jacoby Brissett gets hurt or it's just time to go to the future, they will play Drake Maye. And it's kind of funny. When he got drafted, I remember shooting a video right after the pick happened from my couch, and I said, go get Brandon Ayuk. And if you don't get Brandon Ayuk, I don't want to see Drake Maye play pretty much at all this season. I knew he would play at some point. Then as the season got a little bit closer, like 2 months ago, I'm like, all right, maybe somewhere in October we see Drake Maye, like late October. But now with what I've seen in the preseason so far, and I get it, the offensive line stinks. They don't have a number one wide receiver. This is as far as I'm willing to go right now. I don't want to see Drake Maye for the entire month of September. And I'm not usually this football fan that's like, oh, let's put bubble wrap around the quarterback and the young quarterback and don't play him. I truly believe the Patriots aren't playing him, not because he's not ready. It's because the talent around him is a joke. And the first 4 weeks, Cincinnati, Seattle, the Jets on a short week, and then they're in San Francisco. Then the schedule opens up. Home game. It's technically a home game, but it's in London. And then they play the Jets at home. So those aren't easy teams, right? The Dolphins, good. The Texans, good. The Jaguars, good. The Jets, good. But you look at the first 4 games, even though Miami could win the AFC East this year, Miami's defense isn't great. So that's when I think you're going to see Drake Maye on October 6th. But Marco, now you've been in the middle here, right? You've had football success in your life, like the top of the mountain success. Mm-hmm. And then you've also had just dreadful years. Mm-hmm. You know, in my lifetime, this is all new, being now the dreadful team. And I think,
because you're spoiled.
Yeah, everyone should send me sympathy notes, and they should send me chocolate chip cookies and warm up the milk for me. Yeah, play the small violin.
Yes.
Yes. I know you don't show your emotions.
No,
so
on the inside,
I appreciate you crying for me on the inside. Mm-hmm. I know that you have voiced this to me before. Protect the young quarterback. Don't just throw him on the field to throw him on the field. That's what I think the Patriots are doing here. Like, they acknowledge that Drake Maye played really damn well this preseason and was the coach even said a better quarterback than Jacoby Brissett. But this roster around him, they're like, we're not going to ruin the quarterback early on. And I wonder how long they could actually go that way before they rip off the Band-Aid and say, Drake, here we go.
Yeah, look, and again, it depends, because you can't screw with the guys in the locker room because they know who the better player is, and it messes with them. They feel like, what are we doing? So that part of it, you can't. Gerard Mayo has kind of botched this to begin with. You can't come out and say he's better, but I'm not going to play him. That's no good. You've got to say that the rookie hasn't gotten there yet. And not only say that,
the next day announce he's not the starter.
No. So that's already, so he's made some rookie mistakes himself as in the head coach.
He should have channeled his inner Belichick and give the media nothing.
Right. So, but I do think that there is something for the fact of, like, I understand wanting to see the player play. I understand wanting the new toy and the shiny toy and seeing what it is and what it's going to be and what it's going to develop, and you want to see your future as fast as possible. But I'm always of the belief of, when your guy is ready, that's when he should play. Has nothing to do with everything around it. Mm-hmm. Whether you stink, whether you're not good, who's in front of him, who's behind. If he's your future, if you feel like this is going to be, because this is what the NFL is all about. Find your franchise quarterback. When you feel your franchise quarterback is ready to play and in the best position possible, that's when he should play. No other extenuating circumstances.
So
None.
Are the Patriots making a mistake? Because right now, with what I've seen in the preseason, I do think Drake Maye is a lot more ready, and I do think he's ready than what people thought. Like, when he got drafted, I remember people that I trust that follow football and watch a ton of football and are involved in the game, they're like, sit him for a year. He's not anywhere close to being ready. And heck, that was a big reason why I was concerned when the Patriots were drafting him, because you get a lot of Josh Allen comparisons thrown out there. Like, yeah, it worked for Josh Allen with Buffalo, but coming out of Wyoming, everyone's like, this guy's not ready. It's going to take time. It's all about the accuracy. And there's some Carson Wentz-like plays that I've seen Drake Maye make at UNC. And I mean that more so when Carson Wentz left Philadelphia. There's like some inexcusable plays. But what I saw in the preseason when Brissett got hurt, and I know it's up against the Commanders and they're not playing their starters, but when he orchestrates a 11-play, 88-yard drive, mobility at the quarterback position, running on a third down for a first, I'm like, this guy's a leader.
Yeah.
That's my quarterback. He's ready.
Yeah, that's great. For you, you said the buzzword for me, preseason. We know the preseason doesn't matter.
This stuff,
no,
Marco.
but like we know the preseason doesn't matter. We always say the same thing. We don't. And then as soon as we see something we like, look at it. There it is. It's right there. No,
I'm taking the bait.
It's not. It's vanilla. It's garbage. It's not real. And you have to know what you see in practice. Now, Gerard Mayo has kind of alluded to the fact that in practice he's been better than Brissett, and that's a problem. Like I said, inside your locker room. But I do feel like one, you've got to protect him from. If he's going to go out there with no protection of any kind,
this line sucks.
He's going to run into mistakes. And mistakes are fine, but there is something about, and I'm a big believer in this, your internal clock for a quarterback. It's vital. We all know that. Well, you got to have the internal clock. You got to know when the pass rush is there. You got to know. When you speed it up, you can't wind it back. So if you put him in a situation where he's under duress every time he stops, when he drops back, eventually those hits add up. And as he gets into year 3, 4, 5, when the line starts to get better, he won't trust it because his internal clock has now been sped up from being bombarded and hit. Think David Carr back in the day with the Texans. Yeah. There is such a thing as your internal clock speeding up if you take too many hits. So for me, you've got to protect him from himself and from what you've put around him. And you also got to make sure that I'm the belief. When he's ready, good. Give it 2 more weeks. He'll be more ready. If this is your future, why do you mess with it and do it early when it could have a drawback? There's no drawback in he played too late. Never heard such a thing.
Let me give you the schedule. You tell me when I should stop giving you the schedule when Drake Maye is starting a game for the Patriots, and let's just assume Jacoby Brissett doesn't get hurt. Right?
Well,
you can't predict injury.
Right.
It would not shock me though if he does get in. He already got hurt once behind this offensive line. At Cincinnati to start the season. Then they are home against Seattle. Then the Patriots Thursday night are on the road up against the Jets. Then they're in San Francisco against the Niners. Week 5, they are home against the Miami Dolphins. Week 6, they are home against the Houston Texans. Week 7, they go to London to go up against the Jaguars. No off week there. The following Sunday, they're home against the Jets.
None of that.
None of those games.
Of that.
I got to get through all of October without seeing the future.
Look, if you're talking about actually protecting the kid, none of those games are you going to be favored is not even a question. You're not going to be favored in any game you play. But there's now one of those games, do you feel like you have an opportunity to win? Okay. Right now as we sit in August.
All righty.
I also don't see a defense that's not going to put them under constant duress. With their offensive line.
Week 9. At Tennessee. November 3rd.
Maybe. Where's their bye week?
Week 14.
Okay.
It is you want to get there's like 4 more teams before the bye week. At the Bears, Rams, at the Dolphins, Colts.
I mean, this is going to be a long year. This is going to be a really long year for them.
Could the Patriots be 0-17?
I don't want to go to that. I'd like to think that there would be a win or two in there, but I do feel like you're looking at least November for him. Now, granted, unless the pressure for Gerard Mayo
to the Tennessee game, that was the reaction that I got the most response out of.
I do like the idea of starting him on the road, and I do feel like that might be the softest landing spot by far from everything that you said. I would have to pick that one out of all there. But I do think for Gerard Mayo, the one thing he's got to make sure that he does is fight the urge of, we stink, just put him out there to put him out there.
Absolutely.
You're not putting him out there week 1 because you want to protect it. Have that same vibe when you're 0-7. Because if you're protecting your job, then you're no longer protecting your franchise quarterback. Know what the mission is. Know what you're trying to accomplish. And that's something that Gerard Mayo's got to definitely make sure he remembers this season.
And the Patriots' final 4 games are at the Cardinals, at Buffalo, Chargers, Buffalo. It's a tough schedule.
It is. And those are tough with the 2 Buffalo games.
A lot of people should have sympathy for me when I'm going to have to go through this season.
No, not even a little bit. How many divisions did you have wrapped up before you were trick-or-treating on Halloween?
A lot.
No sympathy.
Maybe send me
None.
a little polish so I could shine the rings. All right?
You've had enough winning for a lifetime. If you don't see another thing until your grave, I'm not going to feel bad for you.
Yeah, no,
not
that's
even
true.
a little.
I think people should have sympathy for me because now my football fan and the rest of my life sucks because I know nothing will top what I saw the first 20 or so years.
Hey.
Yeah.
Most of us don't get those 20 years.
Yeah, I'm just saying. No,
I hope you soaked it in. That's
like
what it is.
I will always I appreciate winning football. So hopefully the next time the Patriots win a championship, even if I'm like 80 years old, I will appreciate that.
Again, when you're retired in your 60s and you look back and you have to watch the DVDs or whatever it is, whatever
that's fine.
Focus that we're going to have, or whether it's YouTube or whatever, have that same vibe.
But there will be people that are from my generation, and I won't be one of these people because I'll appreciate the next time they win a ring when they go, okay, they won one. Well, that Brady and Belichick guy won 6, so you better go win another one. There will be people that way. There'll be spoiled people that way. We live in a world full of spoiled people.
Keep that energy.
So if you want to, send me a gift or something like that for the tough football season to have me get through an NFL Sunday. You could always find me on social media at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. Or Samter will be taking donations at 855-212-4227 for the Zach Gelb Fund. We'll take a time out. Here he is, El Capitan, Marco Belletti.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
Zach, Steph Curry's locked into the Warriors through 2027. Reportedly agrees to a one-year extension, $62.6 million. Now guaranteed $178 million over the next 3 years. Joins LeBron James and Kevin Durant, only 3 players ever to exceed $500 million in career earnings. Drake Maye hinted at it. Official now. Goes veteran Jacoby Brissett, the starting quarterback over third overall pick, Drake Maye.
There is no... you got a guy right here, you got a guy right there. We're 100% behind Jacoby. And I had an opportunity to talk to Drake. I had an opportunity to talk to Jacoby separately and also together. And I feel like we're all on the same page from an organizational perspective.
Jalen Hurts getting more added to his plate with the retirement of Jason Kelce. This courtesy of WIP in Philadelphia.
We had a great player in Jason Kelce who took on a lot of responsibility. And as a result of that, I was told not to worry about a lot of things. And so my eagerness to learn and all of that over the years, kind of was halted because of who we had. But now times are different, and I'm excited for that journey for this team.
Baseball, Rangers lead the White Sox 2-1. Cardinals in front of the Padres 3-1. Marlins lead the Rockies 7-6, and it's the D-backs 2, Mets 1. I'm Marco Belletti.
This is the Infinity Sports Network. Check out our new and improved website at infinitysportsnet.com. That's infinitysportsnet.com.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to the Infinity Sports Network.
And this portion of the show is brought to you by Ethos Life, the easy way to get life insurance in 10 minutes, up to $2 million in coverage with no medical exam and just a few health questions. Get your free quote at checkethos.com. Not available in all states. It is the Zach Gelb Show. You can always find me on social media at Zach Gelb. DAC 1971 on Twitter. You know, could I just say DAC for that? I know it's not DAK, but DAC? Maybe. I don't know. You know what makes a player tough? Playing a tough schedule. You can't pick and choose when to play someone based on toughness of game. They will never get better. Maye should play the entire season and take the hits and learn and grow. My opinion. That's usually the way that I kind of approach football. You know, I used to get into those debates for years. Oh, don't just play the young quarterback for the sake of not playing the young quarterback. And I do think Drake Maye is ready. And, you know, you look at the schedule and, right, we're talking about Marco, and he's like, oh, those are some tough teams. I don't know when you're going to actually play him. I do think he's ready. But I also have to just acknowledge, okay, why didn't he win the job? It's not because he's not ready. I don't think it's because they made some promise to Jacoby Brissett on how many games he was going to get. I think this is Elliott Wolf and Gerard Mayo just looking around and saying, man, our offensive line is garbage. Garbage. So can we just punt the decision down the road a little bit and have him waiting there, and then ultimately we will say, okay, Let's throw him in the deep end and see, even with some not great and not ideal situations, can he find a way to at least show us something? Because he did show you something in the preseason. But I totally get the other point, because that's the way that I usually advocate for it, like the way that DAC 1971 did tweet me. All righty, let's hear from Jalen Hurts. He was on the 94 WIP morning show with Joe DeCamara and former Eagle John Ritchie. And this is Jalen Hurts on not having Jason Kelce this year.
When you look at this upcoming season and what you may have seen from years past, it's just different autonomy in different places. You know, we had a great player in Jason Kelce who took on a lot of responsibility, and as a result of that, I was told not to worry about a lot of things. And so my eagerness to learn and all of that over the years, you know, kind of was halted because of who we had. But now times are different, and I'm excited for that journey for this football team.
It's a fascinating answer. And I know when you talk about him saying parts of his game were halted, I actually think that's more in the leadership standpoint. And I know that quote has gone viral, right? Many people are going to be like if you hear it right away, Nico, I don't think it's crazy to say that Jalen Hurts is basically saying, in a weird way, with how great he was, that has stunted my growth a little bit. And you feel like, oh, that's him throwing Jason Kelce under the bus when you just hear that without knowing the situation, correct?
Yeah, on the first hearing of it, yeah, I get what you mean by that.
But with that being said, I think it's more so from a leadership standpoint. Think about it. Hurts walks into the locker room. You eventually are the starting quarterback. You got paid last year as a star in this league. But when Jason Kelce's in that locker room, he's the most respected player. On the defensive side of the ball, Fletcher Cox, who's now retired, most respected player. Guys, Kelce definitely going to the Hall of Fame. Cox has a case, but they both won championships and are legends in Philadelphia. Hurts had a season. Those guys had a career filled with legendary moments in the most passionate sports city that I've ever been around, in Philadelphia. Now, Brandon Graham's still there. He made the greatest play in Eagles history. But you know that this is last hurrah. And even though you'd rather have Jason Kelce, what do we say out of Jalen Hurts? Oh, you want to be more vocal. You know, you want him to improve as a leader. Those are all things I've heard this offseason. I do believe, even though you'd rather have Kelce still on the team and playing, with Kelce no longer being on the team and Kelce not being on that team day in and day out, like he's still around the squad, he still pops up from time to time, he's in the media, you know that. Jalen Hurts is going to be a better leader. This is now Jalen Hurts' team. Because just because you paid Jalen Hurts didn't mean it was his team. Yes, he was the quarterback. Yes, he was the highest paid player on the team. But last year, that team was still Jason Kelce's. It was still Fletcher Cox. Now, Jalen Hurts, in a huge redemption year after starting off 10-1 and only winning one lousy game down the stretch, it's time for you to not only overtake the locker room, but really, this is now your team where the coach has already kind of genuflected, said, okay, here's a new offensive coordinator. We're not going to talk that much. This is now the Jalen Hurts show. It is. It's the Jalen Hurts show, and his fingerprints are all over this team. And now Jason Kelce's out. Fletcher Cox is out. You are the true leader of this team. You are the heartbeat of this team. And quite frankly, we all know that the enormous amount of talent that they have on this team this season is on Jalen Hurts. And Jalen Hurts is going to show us if he's worth the money or if he's not. And I do think he's going to show you that he's worth the money this year. I'm rooting for Jalen Hurts. I love the way that he handled the Tua Tagovailoa situation. I love what he did at Oklahoma. And what he did 2 years ago, let's not forget, even though they lost, he outplayed Patrick Mahomes in the biggest game of the year in the Super Bowl. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. I got some opinions on how I'll be talking about some college football coaches at the end of the season. Next.
You're in a 5-minute break. 4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Hour number 3 of our radio program. That's right, it is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Man, my headphones are all tangled up here. I just saw that coming back from break, so let me do a quick adjustment. Man, look how quick that I just did that. Please, I'm a pro. I'm actually disgusted that the headphones were that tangled up. Maybe I could hit up our friend Denny Hamlin, who's the NASCAR driver, and got on his pit crew team. Because how quickly I was just able to change those headphones, man, I'd be excellent changing tires. No chance. I don't know about you, Nico. I'll admit this. I don't know how to change a tire. Do you know how to change a tire?
Nope, not a clue.
And I know a lot of people are going to be like, you're not a man's man. You know, what were you raised? By a bunch of animals? How do you not know how to change a tire? I don't. I have a AAA card. So if I ever need a tire change, I hit up AAA. Now, I don't have a car now because I live in New York City, so I don't need a car. So if I ever do need a car, I just rent a car for like the day or weekend, whatever it is. And I live right next to a rental-car place, which is nice. Adjacent to my building is a parking garage, and there's a rental car spot in there. I have had 2 flat tires in my life, and they happened in the span of 2 weeks. People say the roads in New York are bad. I have never been on worse roads than in Philadelphia, when I lived in Philadelphia for 7 years. And the 2 times I needed a tire change, one was coming back into the city on the highway I was coming back from the Princeton area where I was working. And the other time, I was driving to a radio station I was working at the time, 97.5 The Fanatic. And it's a morning shift on the weekends. I was doing post-game that year, the year the Eagles won the Super Bowl. And I'm driving to work in the middle of the road. It was on a highway. Pothole. On a highway. So I heard the tire make a noise, and I'm a mile. You get off the highway, and then it's right there off the highway. I'm a mile from the radio station. So I don't really think much of it. And then I continue to drive, and I start to see like the tires dragging and smoke is going up in the air, and I go, oh boy, like I got to be on the air in an hour. I don't know how to change a tire. So I was young. I was dumb. Do you stop the car? Do you pull over? Do you just slowly keep on driving? And I was slowly rolling to 97.5 The Fanatic. And I got to 97.5 The Fanatic. Called AAA. Now, the first time I called AAA, it came very quickly. Right? Side of the road, donut. There we go. Put it back on. Got back to my apartment. And then the next day went to one of the auto repair shops, and they changed the tire. Then 2 weeks later, when it happened again, I did a 4-hour radio show. AAA was not there. And then they came 2 hours afterwards, and it became a bit on the radio station. There was a producer there, Pat Egan, who wore a Buzz Lightyear backpack to work. And the poll question was, what's more embarrassing? Zach Gelb in his early 20s not knowing how to change a tire, or Pat Egan coming to work with a Buzz Lightyear backpack? And it was a runaway. What do you think the answer was? What's more embarrassing? Was it the funky backpack, or was it your boy not being cognizant of the fact of how to change a tire?
As someone who also doesn't know how to change a tire, I'm going to go with the backpack.
It was actually the tire that they said was more embarrassing. Like, was it even... The poll was like 80 to 20%. So people were...
So we're in the minority.
Very upset. Yes. Because you know how it is sometimes on the radio, you act like a tough guy, and when someone admits that they have a weakness or a flaw, it's like, oh, shame him, shame him, shame him, shame, shame, shame. That's what happened to me. And then eventually the guy with AAA came over, did the whole tire change. I went back into the auto repair shop the next day. They're like, you're back again? And I was like, yeah. You guys probably make a fortune because the roads in Philadelphia were just absolutely terrible. All righty. Anywho, Alec Lewis is going to join us coming up actually in 35 minutes from now. He covers the Minnesota Vikings. We will preview the Vikings with him. He's supposed to join us coming up in 15 minutes, but he texted me that he has a impromptu chat with Justin Jefferson. So hopefully that's on time. They'll chat for 10 minutes, and then he'll come join us. We'll see what he's chatting up with a friend of the show in Justin Jefferson, and we'll preview the Minnesota Vikings with him. But first, Nico, give me a little college football music. And you have identified some coaches, and you are curious how I'm going to be talking about these coaches at the end of the season.
Yeah, we'll start at the top, the leader of the number one team in the nation. That would be Kirby Smart.
Face of the sport. That's the way I think I'm going to be talking about him at the end of the year. Right now, he is the best coach in the sport. He's expected to win a national championship, his third in 4 years. But, with that being said, Jim Harbaugh no longer involved. Nick Saban no longer involved. Like with Nick Saban, it was okay, he's done. It was like, all right, if Jim Harbaugh stays with Michigan, but you knew he wasn't, he would be the face of the sport. Because Jim Harbaugh is polarizing. I don't think Kirby Smart is polarizing. He's great, he's there, but he's not polarizing. But eventually, when you just win, and win, and win, and win. I sound like the Swami Chris Berman there for a second. You become the face of the sport, whether you're polarizing or not. Georgia, to me, is going to win the national championship this year. I have them defeating Alabama 27-17. So I think this is the year Kirby Smart becomes the face of the sport.
Over to the Big Ten we go. A new Big Ten team, that is. Dan Lanning at Oregon.
I think at the end of the year, we look at Oregon and Dan Lanning and we go, okay, he's taken the next step, and he will one day win a national championship with the Oregon Ducks. So last year had a really good season, but he had two opportunities to defeat Washington. Didn't get the job done the first time, didn't get the job done the second time. So I still think, even though Oregon is on my short list of national championship contenders, teams I can actually envision winning the national championship, I think they take that next step. We're showing they're not only just good, they're great even going into the Big Ten. I have them going to the semifinal this year before they do get eliminated. I think this is that next step year. And then after that, it's go win a national championship, which they could do so this year. But I don't think they win it this year. I think they show they eventually can. And we look at Dan Lanning as a coach that will be a national champion one day.
Another coach bringing a school to a new conference. That would be Steve Sarkisian at Texas.
I think we look at Sark at the end of the year and we go, finally, we're ready for Arch Manning. Now, that's not disrespectful. It comes off as disrespectful. I will acknowledge that. But the way I look at that is that we've seen Quinn Ewers the last 2 years. Quinn Ewers had Texas in a college football playoff game last year when it wasn't a college football whorehouse and you let everyone get in, basically, with 12 teams. It was 4 teams. That was sacred grounds. So I look at Sark, though, and yes, what he's done at Texas has been phenomenal, but there's always been that wait for Arch Manning. We know next year is the year for Arch Manning, so I think Texas will be a good team again. I think they'll be in the college football playoff, but I think at the end of the year, it's now, okay, even though they've been really impressive the last few years, now it's go time because we get Arch Manning finally playing in meaningful games. Like, he'll play a little bit this year, I'm sure, but he'll be playing and being the starting quarterback in meaningful games next year.
How about the coach with the most pressure on him, in my opinion, this year, Ryan Day at Ohio State?
You don't like that fella? I could just sense that from the way that you set that up.
Not a fan.
Yeah. So crying Ryan this year, crying Day, but I'm fair. I think he beats Michigan. You know, he needs to beat Michigan this year. You don't beat Michigan this year, you fired. So I think Ryan Day, at the end of the year, we talk about him not getting fired because he beats Michigan. And I think he'll get to the semifinal, but he'll come up just short, and he won't get to the national championship game.
How about Nick Saban's replacement in Kalen DeBoer?
I think we're talking about Kalen DeBoer as the guy that was the right choice to replace and take over for Nick Saban. He has to make the college football playoff this year. I don't only think he's making the college football playoff, I think he's losing in the national championship game. But you make the playoff this year, that is a success, in my opinion, even though I'm starting to expect more and more and more out of Kalen DeBoer. But Kalen DeBoer won games at Sioux Falls. He won games at Fresno State. He took Washington to a national championship game. and now he's at the big boy program of Alabama. I think he shows you this year he's the right guy to replace Nick Saban out of all the choices that were out there.
We already talked about him in Colorado a little bit today. How about Deion Sanders?
I think there's a legitimate conversation at the end of the year that Deion Sanders is not back the following season at Colorado. And it's not because Colorado's going to want to get rid of him. I think it's because maybe Deion is going to want to leave. Shador is going to leave after this year. Travis Hunter is leaving after this year. And if Deion goes to Colorado and is like, you want me to say, go throw me a ridiculous bag, I don't know if they're going to be able to afford him, and then Deion could maybe try to go somewhere else. So I've always looked at Deion at Colorado as a risk that was worth taking. I have advocated for Deion Sanders to get an SEC job, for crying out loud. So this isn't an anti-Deion take, but wherever Deion goes, there is an expiration date. And that expiration date is going to be determined by Deion Sanders. And I just think there's a conversation after this year of how much longer does Deion actually want to be at Colorado.
The biggest hater of the transfer portal. What do you think of Dabo Swinney at Clemson?
No longer elite and a stubborn SOB. That's the way that I look at Dabo Swinney. And I don't know why. And I think it's because there's a lack of accountability, and he kind of mocks the new system of college football. And I get it, right? Dabo's already established. Dabo's a top 5 coach in the sport. Dabo has taken Clemson to heights we never thought they would reach. Heck, he won 2 national championships. But when you are king, even the kings have to adapt. Mike Krzyzewski adapted, one and dones, won another national championship. Nick Saban has adapted. Like, there are coaches that adapt. However, with that being said, he makes fun of NIL. Our program is built off the name, image, and likeness of God. And he doesn't utilize the transfer portal. And last year, I know the game was close, but I was really rooting for Florida State up against Clemson. I will do so the same this year. I'm not going to say that game totally has lost the luster, because it's still going to be important. But man, now we look at Florida State differently after the game to Georgia Tech. But when it comes to Dabo Swinney, I'm looking at week 1. It's Georgia. It's Clemson. 12 o'clock. Like, I really shouldn't have a dog in the fight on this one. The spread is Georgia by 13.5. Yeah, when I'm cracking open my first beer and enjoying myself at Bob's by the Bay, Marash's house, Maraz, however you want to refer to him now. I don't even know how to refer to him anymore. The big fella. You make it Zach Gelb screaming, "Go Dogs," a few times over and over and over again, because I will take joy in seeing Dabo Swinney. Like, I don't want him to just lose that game. I kind of want Dabo to just get absolutely annihilated in that game, because it would show you the difference between Georgia and Clemson and why him not adapting to the new college football illustrates, yeah, he can still be a good coach. When you go up against the elite, yeah, you're no longer in the elite. The Clemson schedule this year: Georgia, Appalachian State, NC State, Stanford, Florida State, Wake Forest, Virginia, Louisville, Virginia Tech, Pittsburgh, Citadel, and South Carolina. So I think the big games that I'm really rooting for, the opponent: Georgia, Florida State, and then Virginia Tech. Those are the 3 games that I just kind of look at and go, okay, I could get behind rooting against Dabo Swinney. Next coach.
Former Oregon head coach, now in his 3rd year at Miami, trying to get the Hurricanes over the hump, Mario Cristobal.
I like Mario Cristobal a lot. I went at one point to coach Temple. They hired some guy, Matt Rule, ended up working out well for the Owls. But Mario Cristobal, I think at the end of the year, you're looking at him and say, okay, he did enough this year. The U isn't back, but he did enough to make me say I want him back as the head coach this time next year. Next coach.
Another Big Ten coach with some pressure on him going into 2024. How about James Franklin?
The new James Franklin is pretty much the old James Franklin, where now he'll get into a college football playoff game. So that's new. But you got to remember, they went from 4 to 12 to do so. So it's pretty much like James Franklin's the same. They just expanded the invite to the party. You've been begging for the invite to the party. You finally get that invite to the party. However, you're not staying in that party for that long. So James Franklin will be the same against the great teams. He won't get the job done, but he'll be good enough to make the college football playoff. And I actually think entering this season, Penn State's the third best team in the Big Ten. So that's why I look at James Franklin.
Last but not least, how about Marcus Freeman with Notre Dame?
Continuing the Brian Kelly way with the family at Notre Dame. And what I mean by that is I don't expect Marcus Freeman to win a national championship at Notre Dame. That's why Brian Kelly left Notre Dame, because he thought he could win a national championship and had a better chance to do so at LSU than Notre Dame. But Brian Kelly saved Notre Dame and did a heck of a job at Notre Dame and always had them good and had them relevant, not just because of their name, but because of their play on the field. I think Marcus Freeman continues the Brian Kelly way. Notre Dame relevant on the field. Notre Dame in the college football playoff. But when they go amongst the elite in the college football playoff, bye-bye. So there we go. Those are the way that we'll be talking about those coaches at the end of the year. We will take a timeout on the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. And when we return, we'll update you some of the biggest stories in the world of sports with some audio. We call that segment the News Brief. It is the Zach Gelb Show right here on the Infinity Sports Network. But first, the biggest pro football contests in Vegas are back. Circa Survivor and Circa Millions are now up to $16 million in guaranteed prizes. You have 2 ways to win and no rake. Circa Survivor contestants select one team each week with no point spread. If the team loses or ties, the entry is eliminated. You could only pick each team once in a season. Last the longest to win it all with $10 million guaranteed. In Circa Million, make 5 picks against the spread each week for your share of $6 million guaranteed. Quarterly and full season payouts. The entry that does the worst wins $100,000. You must register at a Circa Sportsbook in Nevada, Las Vegas, Henderson, or Sparks Reno. And we did the show live from Circa last week. It was incredible. And man, the Stadium Swim outdoor sportsbook at the pool was a thing of beauty. Even Samter was smiling all over the place, enjoying himself. A lot of chest hair, by the way, on Samter. I saw him at the pool enjoying a few drinks after he made a few bets, and then he's swimming. And I go, Samter, you could maybe use a shave. And entries are now open and closed September 7th at 2 p.m. You could visit circasports.com for rules and details. You must be 21 and present in Nevada to enter. Paid for by the great folks at Circa Sports.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
You're listening to the Infinity Sports Network.
All right, it is the Infinity Sports Network, and it is the Zach Gelb Show. Oh, boy. This may be one of the best questions I've ever been asked. From Drunkle Sam. What a name. Zach, if you had to spend a week with James Franklin or Dabo Swinney, who would you pick? Oh, that's a tough question. Because I don't like either. I guess it would be James Franklin. Because Dabo, right, is a two-time national champion. So even though I can't stand Dabo Swinney, I was once a fan of Dabo Swinney, but now I think he's got to a point where he thinks he's an untouchable, and he's not willing to do what's in the best interest of his program. So that annoys me. But for James Franklin, I would love to ask him, and this is why the answer is James Franklin. When Temple was kicking your ass, when Temple beat Penn State for the first time in 74 years and they were up 27-10, you paused the game against little old Temple to check the PSI level of the football when that was a big deal from Deflategate. So I think there's more personal animosity for James Franklin. And since he hasn't won a national championship as a head coach, I do believe, this is going to sound like a terrible way to say it, there's less respect I have to show for him when you sit down and have a conversation. And I think he'd be dumb enough to entertain that. Like, Dabo would just be like, hey, kiss the rings. I got 2 championships. Shut up. All right? But I think James Franklin would be willing to engage more in the conversation. That would just be me. And then I would also ask about the time that he blamed kids not sitting in the first row of classes to why they lost against Ohio State when they just had a boneheaded play call on 4th and 5. So I think there'd be a little bit more fun there. All right, anyway, without further ado, I'm not talking about Freddie Adu. It's time to update you on the biggest stories in the world of sports with some audio. We get to a news brief.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
All righty, let's start it off with Coach Prime. Expectations for the Colorado season as the Buffaloes kick off the season tonight against North Dakota State.
I don't think even in my career when I played, I never talked about what I was going to do, contrary to what you all believe. Never talked about what I'm going to do. I want to win, certainly. If you got to be an idiot if you don't want to win in life or you don't want to win as a coach, that's just stupidity if you don't want to do that. I expect to do some amazing things. Will I share those things that we expect? No.
I'm a little lost for words there. Like, seriously. Play that for me. I got to listen to that again. I need to hear that again.
I don't think even in my career when I played, I never talked about what I was going to do, contrary to what you all believe. Never talked about what I'm going to do. I want to win, certainly. If you got to be an idiot if you don't want to win in life or you don't want to win as a coach, that's just stupidity if you don't want to do that. I expect to do some amazing things. Will I share those things that we expect? No.
All right, that's fine. Like, there's really no opinion off of that I could have. I did think it was interesting in the beginning how he basically downplayed how outspoken he is. Come on, Coach Prime, that's you. It is. Here's my expectation for Colorado this year. Make a bowl game. I'm not saying 7 games, 8 wins, that you got to go get their Big 12 championship. Get to 6. Get to 6. That's simple. You got to get to 6, and I think you're going to come up just short. Now, there's a cut here. It says goal for offseason when it gets to Deion Sanders' cut, too. Like the goal from last offseason or this upcoming offseason? No, the one that just happened. All right. Let's get the goal for what was happening this past offseason for the Colorado program.
Number one thing was to be able to run the ball, protect your door, as well as to stop the run defensively. And that's what we sought out to do, and we feel like we've done that. We don't know how it's going to play out. We think we know how it's going to play out, but don't underestimate the depth that we have at those positions.
I will say this does sound like a different Deion Sanders. You know, it wasn't that time where we were playing an audio clip, and I go, that's not the guy that they're saying it is. I've heard that. I forget who the baseball player was. I'm like, there's no way that's the person they're saying it was. And it ended up, who was it? It was, they said it was Paul Skeens. And then it was actually the Phillies manager. I'm like, I've heard that voice. That ain't Paul Skeens. So when it gets to Coach Prime with Deion Sanders, he does sound different now. Like, obviously, no, it's him. And, hey, he just got into it with reporters and now is banning a reporter from covering college football. But you have, like, a quiet confidence that I sense from those answers about Deion and this team this year. And he knows that the offensive line's got to be better and you got to find a way to defend the run. Let's go to Kyle Shanahan. I thought Brandon Ayuk was going to practice yesterday. Not the case, and he was not on the practice field again today on the early portion of Thursday's practice. Here is Kyle Shanahan on a back and forth with reporters about Brandon Ayuk.
Have you done any football-related activities with any representative of the organization in the last month?
No.
Do you have to make any adjustments on the 53? You carry maybe an extra receiver because questions about whether it's him?
Yes.
Since your doctors have said he's healthy, if he refuses to practice, would you discipline him?
I'll deal with that when that happens, if that happens.
So just to clarify, if he practices, that's not any sign that anything is close one way or the other in terms of a contract extension?
No.
Oh, there's a reason that Kyle Shanahan was trying to get Bill Belichick on his staff this offseason. He is so fed up, and I don't blame him. Like, it's exhausting, the Brandon Ayuk thing. I lost my mind 3 weeks ago about it, where I was yelling. And like, for 15 minutes, I know I'm loud. I get it. But for 15 minutes, and sometimes people are like, oh, you're always yelling. No, for 15 minutes, I was yelling. I was losing my mind 3 weeks ago. And I'm going to, you know what? Gonna have a Zen moment here. Breathe in. Breathe out. Because the next audio clip that I'm going to play has the potential to make me lose my mind. Because Brandon Ayuk wants more money. The Patriots offered him $32 million. He said, nope, don't want to go to your team. Your team stinks. I don't want your $32 million. Then we hear the Steelers are in play. The Steelers are basically saying, we're ready to trade for him and get a deal done. The 49ers just have to say yes. So far that tells me the Niners don't like what they're getting back from the Steelers. But then there was Cleveland. And I think most of us shared the belief that Cleveland was a trade partner with the 49ers because the 49ers, who are win-now mode, could go trade for Amari Cooper and they don't have to pay him anything extra, and the Ayuk situation gets taken care of with the Browns. So I'm like, why isn't that deal not getting done? And I always just thought it was because the Browns, here we go, Brownies, here we go, just weren't willing to give Brandon Ayuk the money that he wanted. But Adam Schefter of the ESPN, did talk about that whole situation. And do we have that cut that I sent you? But when you get to Adam Schefter, he was on the ESPN. Is that cut 4? Yep. All right, let's play that. When he was asked, does the Deshaun Watson restructure signal Brandon Ayuk trade? This was on the Pat McAfee show.
They already were offering more money than Pittsburgh, more money than San Francisco. They were offering a lot. That wasn't the issue.
Got it.
The issue simply was that he preferred to go elsewhere. I don't think the Browns opened up that cap space with the idea that we are getting close to making a trade.
So, Marco, you're a logical guy here. I trust your opinion. Brandon Ayuk, $32 million. Nah, didn't want it from the Patriots. All right, Patriots quarterback situation, question marks, and the Patriots stink right now. The Browns, they offered you more money than Schefter just said than Pittsburgh. But you're not willing to go to Cleveland. Like, I know Cleveland has that perception and that connotation of, oh, they stink, but the Browns made the playoffs last year. So what does Brandon Ayuk want?
He wants the money and he wants San Francisco. I don't think it was that the Browns stink. It's that he doesn't want to go to Cleveland.
Yeah.
No. Not that. He doesn't want to go to Cleveland. It's not the franchise.
Like living in
He doesn't want to go to Cleveland. I think he saw Odell Beckham Jr.
I would love to live in Cleveland.
Be miserable and said, the hell with that. I'm not doing that. So I think Brandon Ayuk is still trying to find his way to strong-arm the 49ers to say, let's just get it done. Because he wants to stay there. He has no
leverage.
He wants to stay there.
I know, but he has, they're going to get a deal done. That has always been my stance from the start. But the 49ers said, go seek a trade.
Right.
Go ahead. Go seek a trade. Go get the offers. All right, Patriots give you 32. We offered you 26. You didn't want the 32 because you acknowledged our situation is better. Fine. Then it was, okay, Cleveland. Oh, a player we would actually want to trade for. They offered you more money, supposedly, than what the Steelers are offering, where we know he wants to go to the Steelers. That was the one team I think he would actually go to is the Steelers if it's leave San Francisco. Oh, you don't want to go to Cleveland. And then the Niners don't have to just trade him just to trade him. The Niners are sitting there, and the Niners are basically saying, oh, wait a second. Wait. Pittsburgh doesn't have a player that we could go win now with.
Mm-hmm.
So they said, go exhaust your options. And it's not only about the money. So now San Francisco, how does this not get done yet? If it was $26 million, it should be $29 million a year. And then boom, it's over.
It's on both sides because it's the 49ers. If they're steadfast, this is the only deal. This is what it is, and this is what it's going to be. And if you're not going to do that, you're either going to play on your current contract or we're going to trade you. Pick one, but we're not doing this any further. They have to make that stance known because I feel like they've kind of bent through this situation. And Ayuk, as much as he has very little leverage, he's trying to parlay as much as he has into the contract that he wants with the team he wants. He doesn't want to leave San Francisco. He can tell you all that he does. All of his actions show you. It's not straight money. He wants the money from the spot that he wants it. And he's just trying to get as much as he can. He's trying to squeeze every dollar out of the Niners.
Now, here's the other thing. Is this just time at this point?
Yep.
You've gotten this far. You know what the Niners are willing to offer now. So it's okay, I'm not going to show up until the first week of the season, so I don't have to do any of these practices. That's what it also seems like, too.
We'll see. Does it get done by that Monday night, or does it linger into week 2 or week 3? And he sees, see what life is like without me for a week or two, and then maybe sign the contract? Wouldn't shock me if we go that far, but I don't see it going past week 2.
I think Ayuk is playing week 1.
Probably. And that's part of the song and dance and the cat and mouse that we're all tired of. Because you know it, I know it, the 49ers know it, Ayuk knows it, everybody knows it, where it's just just get to a point where it gets done. There's no reason to drag this out. You want to be here, they want you here, figure it out.
And also, I think the fascinating part about this is one of the, I guess you could say, consequences from this whole Ayuk situation is there's still a Trent Williams situation that not a lot of people are talking about because Ayuk's a wide receiver, right? It's sexy. You got the Steelers involved. You got the Patriots involved. You got the Browns involved.
Right.
You had the Commanders involved, the whole situation with Daniels and him. So that's gotten all the attention. But Trent Williams, we know, is one of the most important non-quarterbacks in the NFL. And he's had a Hall of Fame career. And like Brandon Ayuk, I think there's a middle ground. Trent Williams, I don't think there's a middle ground. I think you do it on the big fella's term. And there's been nothing with his contract yet.
There isn't. And to me, those two should be separate for the 49ers for what they have to figure out. It's not like, well, if we sign Ayuk, we can't have Trent Williams. No. You need to figure it out.
You need Trent Williams.
You need to figure that out. And that should be priority number one, which also shows you that there's not as much give and take. There's a lot more conversation with Ayuk.
How do you negotiate with Trent Williams?
You figure it out.
Like Trent Williams I'll equate him to when I was in Philly when Jason Peters was there. Like there was a presence around Jason Peters when he was in his locker room, like you were in like sacred territory, like that, like his part of the locker room. Trent Williams, same thing. I saw some video from, I think it was a game up against the Browns maybe, where there was like a little kerfuffle on the field before the game, and Debo and Ayuk were exchanging punches, and Trent Williams comes in, and the entire Browns team was like, yeah, I don't want to mess with that.
Well, again, I get all that, but I mean, you need him. He's more vital to basically anything else that you're doing on the offensive side. There's no reason to not get this done. Unless Trent Williams doesn't want to get this done, but you know he does. So that's why
he would have retired.
There's a lot, exactly. There's a lot of situations where you look at it and you go, there has to be some sort of middle ground. Why wait? Why try to figure this out unless Trent Williams just didn't want to go through training camp?
And which is also a possibility. Look at this. That Monday night game, September 9th, Niners and Jets. You got the Reddick situation unknown, the Ayuk situation unknown, and the Trent Williams situation unknown. ESPN's loving that right now.
And how many of these situations are not going to be known by that Monday night? And that's the part that doesn't make a lot of sense to me with either one of these teams. Both teams are in win mode now. The Jets is about winning a Super Bowl. The 49ers is about winning a Super Bowl. Wouldn't you want every situation and every T crossed and every I dotted before you get to the Thursday or Friday before Monday night where one of these guys goes out there and plays on 3 days, what a practice, quote unquote, and there's a hamstring. There's a calf. It's not worth it in the long run.
Here's what I think happens. Ayuk plays for the 49ers. Williams misses the game. I think Hassan Reddick reports, but they don't play him in that game. I think it's going to be like what you're saying. Is he ready? We'll just wait another week. But I saw he's been working out at Temple recently on some videos and doing drills. I think Reddick's going to report next week. I just don't think I think he's going to report like a little bit late, and he's not going to play week 1.
Which again, what is the end goal for both franchises?
Yeah, I'm not saying
to save a couple of bucks is really worth whether somebody's going to not play in a game. I get it. Week 1 is not going to make or break your season. I understand that for either one of these teams, but you also want to get off on the right foot, and you want to take advantage of another team that could possibly have not one of their best players.
Yeah.
Or do you want to lose a guy to a hamstring for 6 weeks because you play him in a game that he's only been in camp for 3 days? To me, it's not worth it. There's times where it makes sense. You don't want to set a precedent. You're afraid for a future of your franchise. I get all that. And there's times where you have to be an adult and look back and go, what are we doing? What is the point here? What are we trying to accomplish? Is this worth it for what we're trying to get to?
I just had a flashback to the weekend overnight days when you were just like, what are we doing?
But it's the truth, though. Like, what? At some point, like, is there anyone that sits there and realizes that what is the end game? We know we're going to need the player. We know we're going to sign him. We know we're going to get to that point. Do we have to wait where it's, no negotiation could get done until it's the last minute? Why? Sometimes it's the right thing. And sometimes you look at it and go, what are we doing? What do we gain? And there's nothing that anybody's gaining from this. To me, it seems silly.
It is Zach Gelb Show, the Infinity Sports Network. Coming back, one more segment to play. Update time first. Here he is, El Capitan, Marco Belletti.
Infinity Sports Network. Sports Flash.
Zach, Warriors Steph Curry have added another year to his contract. An extension at $62.6 million means he's guaranteed 3 years, $178 million. It'll lock him into Golden State through his 18th NBA season. Drake Maye era New England will have to wait at least to begin the season. Head coach Drake Maye announced Jacoby Brissett as a starter.
The hard part is thinking in the short term and the long term at the same time. As an organization, though, we feel like Jacoby gives us our best chance to win right now.
Still nothing new. Hassan Reddick's situation with the Jets. Veteran pass rusher remains a holdout. New contract despite just being acquired from the Eagles earlier in the offseason, which begs the question, why did the Jets and the GM, Joe Douglas, make the trade without an agreement in place?
In simple terms, we did we did talk about an extension once one wasn't agreed upon. We had the conversation and we felt good about making the trade.
Browns freed up about $36 million in cap space, restructured the contract for Deshaun Watson, also released quarterback Tyler Huntley. Baseball, Marlins in front of the Rockies 11-8 in the 8th. Mets and Diamondbacks even at 2 in the 8th. Top of the 4th, the A's lead the Reds 4-0. Angels shut out the Tigers 3-zip. Cardinals erased the Padres 4-1. Rangers up in the White Sox 2-1, and the Angels shut down the Tigers 3-0. I'm Marco Belletti.
You make the call. 855-212-4227. When you want to talk to us, call 855-212-4227.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. 45 seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick from the Backstreet Boys. And you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Oh, my God, we're back again.
So there is some anticipation for Tom Brady's debut on Fox. So Tom Brady's first game is going to be the Cowboys against the Cleveland Browns. And I was reading a Yahoo Sports article today it's maybe from the Associated Press, Mark Anderson and Rob Motti. And it was thrown up on Yahoo Sports. And it says, Tom Brady's pending bid to become a part owner of the Las Vegas Raiders has triggered restrictions on his access to teams around the NFL as part of his role as a Fox Sports broadcaster, a league spokesperson said on Thursday. Brady is not permitted to attend in-person or online broadcast production meetings and may not have access to team facilities, players, or coaches. Fox staff is not subject to these limitations. He also must abide by the league constitution and bylaws that prohibit public criticism of officials and other clubs, but is allowed to broadcast Raiders games. So a few things to unpack here. I know what the simple take is going to be from many of my fellow confidants in the media. Well, if you can't be honest, I don't want you doing the games. I get that. Totally get that. But I think the NFL is being a little ridiculous here. In terms of, okay, Brady has a pending bid to be a part owner of the Las Vegas Raiders. If he sits down with, let's say, Cowboys and Browns week 1, if he sits down with Mike McCarthy and Dak Prescott, what's going to happen? If he sits down with Deshaun Watson and Kevin Stefanski, what's going to happen? It's not like in these production meetings, they're giving him all the answers, and then Brady's going to run back to the Raiders and be like, okay, here you go. Now, I understand why that fear is there. I totally get that. But this idea that Brady won't have access to facilities, players, or coaches, I think that's crazy. I do. And here's the crazy part about it, too. Let's say Brady's doing, I don't know. Let me think of a quarterback here that I want to throw out there. Let's say Brady is doing a Panthers game. I don't think there's going to be any number 18 Panthers games. You tell me Bryce Young isn't going to want to meet with Tom Brady? Like, of course he is. Now, this is the iconic Tom Brady. You know, what Michael Jordan is to the NBA is what Tom Brady is to the NFL for future generations and generations. So I guess I could understand a little bit because of the fact that, okay, you fear that he's going to take whatever information he gathers and gives it to, the Raiders, and that could help him, in season or, when he eventually owns the team. But I kind of think that's like too much analysis there and too much paranoia there. Now, here's the one I take great issue with. He also must abide by the league constitution and bylaws that prohibit public criticism of officials and other clubs, but is allowed to broadcast Raiders games. How is he then going to do the job? And how strict are they going to be? So you're telling me, let's say Brady's calling a game for Fox this year, and there's an egregious penalty flag that's thrown where it shouldn't have been thrown. He can't criticize the officials? And here's the part that I missed at the first point. Public criticism of officials at other clubs. So you're telling me Cowboys, Browns week 1, if the Cowboys suck, he can't say, hey, the Cowboys look like trash? I have a tough time thinking. The official part, I think, is pretty black and white, right? But the club part, he's going to be critical. He has to be critical. And if he's not, then he's going to get slammed as a broadcaster. I'm not saying he has to be like Skip Bayless, just spewing out hot take, hot take, hot take, hot take after hot take. I'm not saying that. But this is where the NFL just fails, like over and over again. Common sense. There's no issue for the league when Tom Brady, the broadcaster, is sitting there saying, hey, the officials missed this. The officials missed that. There's no issue for the league where, I don't know, if it's Chiefs-Dolphins and the Dolphins offense can't do anything. If Brady goes, yeah, the offense is terrible. But how are they going to monitor this? How are they going to discipline this? And are they actually going to discipline this? Or is this just saying something to say something to check a few boxes? And then when Brady is with Burkhardt on Fox and he goes, yeah, that wide receiver dropped the ball. Man, I don't know. The Patriots wide receiving room is terrible. Are you going to find Tom Brady? You're going to say, oh, now your bid is over as a part-time or a part owner of the Las Vegas Raiders? So it's like, come on. What are we doing here? So I will say, I do think it's fair for us fans to wonder what version of Tom Brady you're going to get. If Tom Brady's allowed to be Tom Brady, or like 85% of Tom Brady, I think Tom Brady's going to be really damn good. And I've said this from the start. Everyone's freaking out. What about Greg Olsen? Oh, what about Greg Olsen? He got screwed. Okay. The upside of Tom Brady as a broadcaster is worth it to then tell Greg Olsen you're getting demoted. It is. If Tom Brady, I don't know if he's going to be great at this. I think he will be. But if Tom Brady's really damn good at this, think about the clout that he has. Greg Olsen is great at this. But Greg Olsen isn't Tom Brady. If Brady's just good, it's better than Olsen being great because it's the great Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback of all time. The most important position in sports is the quarterback position. So that's why you take the risk. But if you're not going to let him be critical of the officials or teams, I'll say this. Is Tom Brady even set up for success? New England didn't have great wide receivers. Now has to play a different set of rules compared to every other broadcaster. Alrighty, that is the Zach Gelb Show on a Thursday. Alec Lewis got tied up with Justin Jefferson, so he'll join us, I guess, some point tomorrow or maybe next week. Who knows? We got 3 more teams to preview. It's the Vikings, it's the Chiefs, Kansas City. How about those Chiefs? And also the Rams. But anyway, big thanks to Nico. Big thanks to Samter for helping out with the program today. Big thanks to each and every one of you for tuning in and interacting with the show. You can always follow me on social media at Zach Gelb, ZACHGELB. I'm on Twitter, X, and Instagram. And also like to thank my guests today, Pat Leonard and Champ Bailey. You got Colorado, North Dakota State tonight. We'll talk about it tomorrow and get you set for a big college football weekend on a Football Friday tomorrow. How about that? This is Zach Gelb Show. We talk manana, everybody, at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. We out. Bye-bye. Peace.
You're in a 5-minute break.